Tahara. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, Leighton?
Good. Happy belated 4th of July.
Yeah, to you too.
Did you have a nice weekend? Hopefully, you got a long weekend out of it.
We had a great weekend. We all, with our 1 year old, he just turned one. We were matching in the spirit. The best mascot was my husband, who had a extra large bikini. He had something beneath it, but had a women's extra large bikini because, last minute, that's the only thing we found.
That's awesome. Good for you. Good for him.
Yeah.
It's like it takes a real man to wear bright pink.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of confidence for a man to do that, and he definitely doesn't like that one.
Good for you. So let's catch up a minute here.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to in the last like 6 months or 8 months, however long it's been?
Yeah, I think we talked 3, 4 months ago. When we had a little bit of I would say there was a little bit of crisis energy in commercial farming with fertilizers and all that. So we have completed the spring crop season. We're super excited and happy that we had almost 100 new farms this year on board. And we have also successfully transitioned to what we call it, a profitability platform. So our biggest, as we talked before, our biggest mission is to help these farms be profitable, to keep the land in their hands, so they can manage the farm, so they can manage the land, so they can successfully transfer it to the next generation. So they're not fighting paycheck to paycheck, a bill to bill every year, a loan to loan, and all of that. It's a lot of work there. So, it doesn't happen overnight. But we have added, when we last talked, we started setting up a system how we can, with our input reduction protocols, so that's one ingredient into getting the profit, is just eliminate the costs, because they can't put a higher price on their product, right? It's a commodity. So whatever market sets up the product cost, so you can't really do much with that. The only thing you can actually control are your input costs. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to reduce their input costs. We're trying to invest in their soil so that it's not a risk, it becomes an asset. Years coming, so you can use less and less. And on top of that, we started with some financial incentives, and gotta say, we launched that as a system about 45 days ago, and we have 2 farms that have already been paid $50,000 and $100,000 on the acres where they deployed our product, from certain programs that we work with. We're looking for tools, right? So there's some government programs, if you're doing some research on your farm, that you can get some money in your tax credits that you already paid, return back if you are doing stuff like that. There's the carbon credits program. We're not a big fan of that one, but you know what, if we can use it to help the farms, we are going to use it. We're not big in that one yet, but there's so many other programs that we started looking into that our protocols qualify for. So yeah, that was in 45 days. We included less than a third of farms that we work with. So it was a test, right? We started with whoever is already using our protocols, using our products. We haven't started a new sales process, including new farms. We went through about a third of them, included third of them, and some got paid in less than 20 days from actually giving us the information we need to see if they qualify, if we can even do that, to the day that the money landed from IRS on their bank account. So we got some happy campers. But yeah, that's just the
Awesome.
start. That's just the start of what we're trying to do. The profitability platform. That's it. Whatever tools we can use to help the farms, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, corn farmers are projected to lose $130 an acre lose this year. We've been looking at, winter wheat is the next one that starts now in commercial farming. So they're going to be planting it in a couple of months. And just looking at the input costs and the projected wheat per bushel cost, I mean, it's rough, Leighton. It's really rough. Like they need to think out of the box. They need to do big shifts right now. And it's been really rough with margins for the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing across the board, and the weather's not helping. I know my good friend in Illinois, has gone through 2 months of rain, and the corn is stunted. He said where the field was tiled, it's waist high, which is great, but where it wasn't tiled, it's ankle to knee high, which is okay, but the plants were yellowing. So yeah, they're getting the tar kicked out of them right now.
It's a lot of rain in some regions, and then we also had a lot of heat waves. Mm-hmm. So it threw a wrench into our protocols too. Like there was a lot of management this year in those heat waves of like timing, it's logistically hard this year. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, the whole Central Valley in California lost all their fruit and nuts because of the heat wave. All the plants dropped their flowers. So that's going to have a devastating effect on this year's crop for America and abroad. We're one of the biggest producers in the world of pecans and pistachios, and, other stone fruit. And so, yeah, it's brutal. And, we don't want to dwell too hard on it, but again, I think that, products like yours and what you're doing helps to support the tree health, even in critical environments. So, again, if we're trying to look at stabilizing the commodity as a whole, the more biologicals we get into the ground, the more likely that they will be able to survive. I'm not talking catastrophic, because if the hail comes, there's nothing you can do. But if it's just a drought or a heat wave, sometimes they can tolerate that stuff.
Yeah.
So have you done any studies on what we call plant protection or plant response as far as reacting to these kinds of critical conditions?
So what we've seen from previous years is plants really respond well also on foliar feeding, because you can bypass a little bit of the soil conditions. If you feed it at the right time, they respond really well to that. Timing, if we follow, and sometimes it's hard because it means you have to do some tractor passes, but if we follow the growth stages and just deliver it at the right time, we can get a good response there. And then just in general, a lot of biology in the soil, just a broad biology, will help with water retention, will help with the organic waste breakdown. We kind of know at this point, there's kind of like a general number that if you can increase organic waste by 1%, you'll get 20 to 25,000 gallons per acre more in water retention. So that's a big deal. If you can start right and have a pretty good developed root system, that's of course going to help in tough conditions. And yeah, I think those are the big ones that I've been seeing in the past few years.
So ironically, I've kind of been focusing kind of part-time, but now I'm taking it a lot more serious on mineral-associated organic matter. So in the soil organic matter pool, we have what's called POM, particulate organic matter, and that generally sits on the surface of the soil. And unfortunately, it oxidizes and it decays and doesn't really affect the organic pool. And then there's DOM, which is dissolved organic matter, which is a compost extract. And typically it is 1 to 2% of the overall organic soil matter pool. So it's a fraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it's so effective is that the only way that's produced is by soil exudates, or excuse me, plant exudates, which finally we're talking about exudates as a carbon source, right? And for years, they're sugars. No, they're actually carbons. There's sugar in it too, but because of that carbon, it allows the biology, or specifically the bacteria, to divide and divide and divide, which causes the protozoa to keep up, prey predator. So, again, like carbon, right? Carbon credits, if they were designed around monitoring, the carbon in the soil and not necessarily the CO2 in the air, I think it would be way more effective way to measure like who's improving and who's not. And the last piece is MOAM, mineral associated organic matter. So I make it. I'm probably one of the few people that do on scale, but it takes 6 months to a year. So it's no joke. It's a lot of work. The way I make it is I go through mesophilic but not thermophilic composting. And by staying in the mesophilic zone, you're converting a lot of like cytoplasm within the plant cell and within the bacteria cell. You're converting that into primary and secondary metabolites that are being stored in the organic matter itself. When you go thermophilic, that burns off. So you might show a decent amount of nitrogen or phosphorus or any of these other minerals, but the extra polymetric substances you don't get. They're gone. They're volatilized. And what we've seen is when you apply mineral associated organic matter to soil, it boosts organic matter faster than anything else on the market. And the way you apply mineral associated organic matter is by dissolving it in water and then applying it. Because if you just sprinkle the carbon, because it's kind of colloidal carbon, it's very, very small particulate. If you just apply it on the surface, it gets cooked, right?
Yeah.
So if you add it to water and in the right proportions, because you really want a lot of water so that water pushes it down into the soil, the results are insane what you can accomplish. We actually turn buckets of sand into a top layer, almost six inches of like topsoil, using that product. And so, in my mind, this is something that I want farmers to make themselves because they can.
Yeah.
So they could typically, make it after the harvest or before planting. And then they can use, like, if they're making it before planting, they get to use it after harvest and charge the field for next year. And then they make the winter or fall stuff for the following spring to apply. And especially even if it's in a powdered form, like they had to use a manure spreader or something like that, or a fertilizer bucket. See, there you go.
Sweet. And what's the timeline, and like how long did it take to get that topsoil?
A few months.
Sweet.
Isn't that insane?
Sweet.
So, I'm gearing up to start reaching out to companies like yours and saying, hey, you pull together a client that I can really focus on one-on-one, teach them soil microscopy, show, FaceTime them and show them the process and the procedures on how to do this, and, be there to support them, because in the beginning, how it is with clients, there's a lot of hand-holding required. But to be able to teach that to other humans is, in my mind, the most rewarding thing I could do the rest of my life. Because I'm not here to sell you products. I'm here to teach you and to educate you so you can move forward and you can pass along the farm. And it is going to be productive and it is going to save you a shit ton of money. Because, we've talked about this before. We shouldn't even talk NPK. It should be CNPK. Because the NPK won't work if you don't have C in the soil.
Yep.
It washes away. And you know that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's something we can talk about after the fact. But
oh yeah, sweet.
It's definitely something that I've been driven to focus my energy on more so than some of the other projects I'm working on. Yeah, I got to make a living, right? So I'll probably have to charge something, but it'll be nominal. It'll be more about the rewarding of teaching these people how to work with Moan and Dom, because you saw what happened, right? That was aggregated too. There was pictures of me, like when I pulled the bucket apart, I was getting golf ball size aggregates out of that. I mean, that's insane. The aggregates will hold the water like a
hold the water, yeah.
So you talk about raising organic matter by 1% and increasing the water storage capacity. When you get aggregates, that number just keeps going up and up and up. And the most important part, especially with people that don't have irrigation, is it'll store the rain, right? The rain will not erode, or the rain will not soak through the sandy part of the soil. It'll store in those little clumps, and then slowly but surely, it'll turn to vapor within that clump. And now it's stable. And once the root hits that little aggregate, it can pull the water out of it, kind of like we do with condensation. So, yeah, it's exciting stuff. It really is.
That's incredible. That's definitely something we would love to connect.
Yeah.
And learn more. And like I said, I mean, where we're going. We're trying to look at it. We're trying to look at the whole ecosystem as business. Also, like you said, like you got to make a living. Like everyone in the chain has to make a living. And one thing we've been seeing is there's like every input company that works with growers, any kind of growers. It's just, I want to sell my input. I want to sell it at this price. And then whatever happens. Like, I don't care. We're looking at from a different perspective. We're looking at, let me see your business. Let me see your farm. Let me see where you're at. And like, whatever I deliver to you, it has to have.
Sorry.
You're good. I'm like, there has to be an ROI. Otherwise, I feel like ag in particular, the fertilizer companies are putting their own clients out of business. And like, what, is there a business if you put your own clients out of business? And there's a lot of that happening across the board. It's just like, it's kind of like a war out there. And we took a big hit because of our approach, because we don't want to play that game. And we decided, you know what? The only thing we care about are the ROIs. I'm going to look at what you're doing. I'm going to see where the gaps are. And we're approaching it as like, what's your revenue? What's your cost? What are your risks and assets? And a lot of these guys, their soil is a risk. And we're like, the protocols that we're trying to put in place are there to make their soil asset, which is that protocol you just showed, the product you just showed, that can turn a risk into an asset when it comes to soil. And that's kind of like how we're working. We're looking at the whole system, and we're just trying to like whatever makes sense for that business, because farm is a business too, to succeed.
And I really love the fact that you're trying to get them to a point where they're staying alive.
Staying alive.
Right. And once you get past, the triage, once you get past the triage, yeah, you're going in the right direction now. You're not going in reverse. You're actually, each step's going to be a little bit easier, a little less painful, a little less expensive. And before you know it, you are going to be 100% sustainable, regenerative, good ROI, and be able to have a life. Yeah.
And the transition needs to be manageable. If you're trying to, turn the switch off, or turn the switch on, or turn it off, like you can put company, like you can put these businesses out of business, these farms. You can't just like, oh, we're just gonna address the soil and that's it, and like let's just cut everything. Like it just doesn't go that way. We like to go year one. Let's see where we can create budget for you. so that second year you can address your biggest asset, which is soil, and then basically mitigate that risk. But we're looking year one, we're looking at like, we're not going to, one thing about soil and soil health is it's one of the most important things and one of the things that is the hardest to measure. It's really hard, right? It's really like, we know that all of these, like if you put in biology, organic matter, all of these things, we know that it works. And we know that in a few years, if you keep doing it, that soil is going to be incredible and you will have a return. But it's really hard to like promise the actual like number on return when you're treating soil. And anyone that's hurting and has been hurting for a few years and it's looking for a lifeline, it's really in our best conscience, it's really hard for us to be like, yep, just buy this stoat, doesn't matter, you'll be fine. You know, that's not how we work. We really look at like, what is the minimum we can do for the maximum returns, so we can give you a little breathing room year one, create a little budget, and then use other tools that we're using right now, which are financing tools, and then actually bring some money to the farm so that, okay, next year let's address the soil health and like let's mitigate that risk.
You know what? I wish we had a metric to define soil health, because everybody I have on the podcast, we talk about this a lot, is like, well, what is soil health? Like, how can you measure it? And we don't really have a standard yet. Like, you know, like I know some of the work that's done on these very expensive, sophisticated labs like Landell, they do measure carbon storage, but the piece of equipment itself is horribly expensive, and it's not easy to operate, and it needs to be recalibrated. And so it's not only expensive to buy, it's expensive to maintain. So, you know, for companies like us or even, you know, some bigger ones, they don't have the money or access to those basic types of systems that could help to monitor. Like, we can go chemistry, that's easy, right? Yeah, you can get the pH, you'll get the organic matter, but you won't get the carbon. And that's, I think, the most important piece of the puzzle that we're missing in soil health. So for Goose and Giggles, please tell me what you would like, or what you believe soil health is, because it's hard to define.
Yeah, it really is hard to define. You know, we can look at different ways. Like we see farms that are in, if you take a test of that soil, it's horrible soil and they're growing things somehow. And then you can take a test and it's like on paper good soil and they're really struggling with anything coming out. So do we look at the outcome? Like, do you have a crop? Do we look at, and then again, do you have a crop, or do we look at the quality of the crop? You know, because you can grow food, you can grow crops, but then you go and test the quality and there's no nutritional value in there. That means you have nothing to pull out of the soil that actually gives nutritional value. So I'm gonna be honest, I mean, I don't have a defined answer. I do think that the real proof of a good soil is if you can get comparable results, comparable crop, no matter the weather conditions. But I'm not saying here a tornado hits you, okay?
Right. Yeah, there are some extremes, right?
Yeah, right. I'm talking here, you know, you get, you know, let's say in a normal range of rain, and then you have a month of a drought, and if you can still pull through, that means you have a soil that's working. You have a soil that's buffering you. I would say that is a big deal, and I do think that the crop quality really shows that you have an ecosystem, because you will not have micronutrients if there is no soil biology. And a crop quality that shows you that that the nutritional value is pretty high, the protein's high. It really shows that you have biology that's working, and it's making your nutrients available, because you can push with chemicals, you can push a lot of foliage. You can push a big corn out with a lot of nitrogen. But then if you actually test the crop, what's in there, I think those two things, if you can get comparable results in different weather conditions, and if you can get a pretty good crop quality, I think that really shows, without testing the soil, that the soil is a living organism.
Well, again, functioning ecosystem, right?
Functioning ecosystem.
Yeah, that's the key to nutrition. And again, like, how do you speed up the process of nature following, right? We all know if you just let the field fallow for 5 years, that organic matter is going to build up. The crops are going to naturally grow and fall, create, a micro ecosystem on the surface of the soil that supports the biology, supports the earthworms. So we know how to do it, but you can't say to a farm, don't grow anything for 5 years. They'll be out of business. They're gone, right? It's not an option.
Yeah.
So, you just only grow one field, half of your fields at a time. No, it still doesn't pencil. Like, they're so in the corner that every square foot has to be in production, with a prayer and a hope that at the end of the season, yeah, you produced enough to actually made a profit and pay back your debt, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that, the only real way to do that is exactly the way you're doing it, which is transitioning in slowly but surely. The first year, yeah, it's gonna be tough, but second year, like, we can find you some grants, cool. By year 3, you should have tilth in your soil, right? Your product, I'm sure, does the same thing that most biologicals do, is they help decrease that tilth.
Like, our playbook is super simple. We start with, we kind of look at, farms are different, right? They're using different chemicals and different amount of chemicals, and we look at what chemicals can we cut year 1, and we're trying to put as little chemicals, because most of these soils have a lot of locked nutrients. I mean, it's decades of putting down a fertilizer, and they don't really lack fertilizer. They lack biology to convert that fertilizer in something that's available. So we look at, okay, we do 2 things. One is we stop delivering as much chemicals on the soil, and that itself can regenerate soil a lot, because there's not an overload, because like I said before, one problem about nitrogen is you have excessive nitrates that start leaching, and they're going to pull magnesium, calcium, potassium, because they have a binding effect, right? So just by not putting that much nitrates, free-floating nitrates in the soil that get washed out, you're already preserving micronutrients. You're not even adding biology. You're just taking nitrates out, right? So that's where the input reduction, that's one of the things that we do with input reduction, is let's put less in the soil, and let's put only microbials in the soil. And there are different ones. You don't just want to have bacteria. You also want to have, you want to go on heavy on fungi too. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about that one, because that one is really important with herbicide reduction. So that's one thing we do. And then we try to foliar feed, spoon feed the crops while you're taking out of the soil and you're putting in biology and you're building the ecosystem, but you still want to maintain that high performance crop. We foliar feed. We foliar feed nutrients with microbes so that they make it available and absorbable right away. And we feed it at a time that a crop really needs it. Because there are, when the crop is pushing foliage, pushing roots, pushing flowers, they're using different nutrients to do that. So you can kind of there's a cheat code to there, right? Yeah, you can foliar feed what they need at a certain growth stage.
Absolutely. And I think that it's like taking aspirin when you have a headache, right? You don't want to do it all the time. It's too expensive. But if you have a headache and it's, affecting your performance,
Yeah.
take that as aspirin. Put the legs behind it so that the plant itself can push forward. And again, it's one of the things that nobody talks about, and it frustrates me, is the fact that the less energy the plant has to produce to create ADP, to leach out exudates, the more it can focus on plant growth or fruiting or sorry.
Reproductive stage.
Reproductive stage. Thank you. Oh my God, brain cramp. It's been a long day. It's getting hot out here, so my brain gets cooked by this time of the day. So and again, like foliar feeding does that. It checks all the boxes on that, and it's quick because it's right there at the source of the plant where the plant needs it.
Yep.
No extra work pushing down the exudates, pulling the nutrients back up. And let's face it, like they don't have to push exudates. The biology will take care of itself, right? It doesn't need the exudates. It's the exudates are the relationship with the plant, the biology, and the soil. So the biology will still do it, whether you feed it or not. You can speed it up and you can course correct, which the plants need to do, based on weather, available water, all that stuff. So you want the plant to have those tools in its toolbox, but no, foliar is a great way to bump.
That's a quick one. I mean, when we start working with spring crops, year one, that's an easy one because also like our protocols, we always strive towards, like I said, an ROI, right? Our protocols, our products will be cheaper than what you cut, right? So basically there's going to be a savings component when you cut your inputs and you're actually creating budget for next year, let's say. So that's one thing. And we've seen just by cutting the major macronutrients without adding any micronutrients, we've seen in the crop, we haven't tracked the soil. Like I said, you can see a lot in the outcome of the crop. Mm-hmm. We've seen in the crop and the quality of crop that balance changes and that there was more available micronutrients and the crop quality was better just by cutting the macronutrients. Because we go so heavy, especially in conventional farming, we go so heavy on NPK, and kind of forget about everything else that is also important in reproductive stage to actually create the corn cob, So we do that. We do some little microbes on soil, and you know what? It's about 3-year process to really see the significant changes in the soil, because the microbes, the roots, if you're not tilling, if you just do a little topsoil tillage, but like if you're not like really tilling, they're gonna create those pathways, they're gonna create those aggregates, and there's gonna be a huge difference in the soil structure year 3. So we do that: input reduction, foliar feeding, and addressing the soil to slowly get there. And then, we're getting creative. These farms don't have 5 years to wait, especially not right now. I mean, like I said before, this year it's projected for a corn farm to lose $130 an acre. So the inputs are going to be $130 more an acre than what they're going to sell their corn for. And it's close with other row crops. It's similar. So I mean the whole industry is projecting a loss. So it's really hard for us to have a conversation. We were at, oh gosh, I got to talk about this. We were at a fertilizer conference a few months ago. We made some great friends, and you know what? When you're being yourself, not everyone will like you. Okay, if everyone likes you, then you're not doing something right. And we were at a fertilizer conference, and there was a lot of talk about I think bicarbonizing the fertilizers and all of these innovative things. And we're just thinking there, okay, like we're asking questions like, how much more is it going to cost? And they're like, but it's not going to cost the farmer. It's actually the retailer. The retailers are the ones that are funding this and paying this and buying this. And I'm like, when in the history of this industry has retailer ever swallowed an increase? It is always passed down to either a farmer or a consumer. I mean, always at the end, the farmer or a consumer is paying for that cost increase. And then we ask, okay, but hypothetically, let's say if there was an increase in fertilizer cost, what would it be? Well, 5 to 10%. And we're like, farmers today almost cannot afford, with the current prices and the projected commodity prices, to pay for this. And we are now innovating things that are going to be 5 to 10% more. We're like, how out of touch is the whole industry? That was our takeaway, is like, how out of touch with what's really happening on the ground is the whole industry. Because we talk to hundreds of farms every spring, right? Like I said, we onboarded 100 farms. There's been many others that we haven't, because they're either not the right time, I can't do it, I'm not planting. That was a big one. We've never heard as many people that said previous years that they're not planting this year because looking at the input cost and the predicting the cost of commodities, they're like, I am going to lose money for sure, and I cannot afford to even plant. Or they switched from corn to soybeans because it doesn't require as much nitrogen and so on. So there's been a big shift in last minute decisions in commercial farming. And again, we were at this fertilizer conference, and the peak of farming sales cycle, when we're on phones and people are saying we're not planting, and then we're here listening, oh, it's going to be 5 to 10% increase in the fertilizer cost because we're going to fancy it up. I mean, I know that there's a green energy behind it, and of course we are so on board with regenerative, but it's not regenerative if it's in short term putting your client base out of business.
Yeah, that's the scary part. You made a hell of a point. No time in history has the retail world bankrupted their clients. I mean, that comment alone, it's like, sit back and let it sink in for a minute. It's horrifying to think. And these guys they trust their realtor, the place they go to purchase, right? They're following the directions. Oh, I need to put more down, or I don't need this, but I need that. And so for them to be put in a place of trust, only to turn around and knowingly sell them more or charge them more for something that may or may not do anything different, right? Innovation, right? I mean, look at how many times you see a product, oh, new and improved. Like, they've programmed us to believe this saying new and improved is actually new and improved. And first, when they started doing it, before all the marketing and real, brainwashing advertising, it was improved, right? America was built on innovation and making something better that lasts longer. But unfortunately, we learned a lesson from the military industrial complex, which was, design it to fail. So the client comes back, right? Premeditated failure. And then that's exactly the retail model that you're talking about, where it's not about being there for the client. It's about.
And you know what? To your point of new and improved, we were talking about what's our next step in bringing more value to our farmers, to our clients. And we're thinking, do we even want to like launch and develop new products? Because we're like, there's microbes are microbes, right? They're an incredible tool, but like we're not in the business of saying these microbes are better than these microbes when we're talking about the same strain of microbes. Like that's not the value. Like biology is biology, and as long as it's alive, there are ways how you can deliver biology dead also, but we're talking about as long as the biology is alive. And you know that, Leighton, you've been testing different strains, right? So as long as the biology is alive, they're all microbes. And then we're like, okay, do we want to add a micronutrient line? And then my husband was like, you know what? That's the last thing the world needs is another micronutrient line. Like, again, micronutrients are micronutrients. And we're like, well, what do we do well? Or what is the value that we can deliver? Like, we don't want to put just another new seemingly improved product on the market. And we're like, what do growers really need? They need to put food on the table. That's what they need. They need their farms, their businesses to be profitable so they can pay for their kids' college. I mean, we have these calls all the time. I'm like, hey, I can't afford nitrogen this year. What am I gonna do? I have 3 kids going to college. You know, that's who's behind it. It's like these people need to put food on the table. And we're like, so what are we doing then delivering profit for them? And we're like, okay, do we need a new product for that? No, there's so many. You guys, I connected you with Dave Olson from Sustainable Growing Solutions that I think you guys had a podcast a few weeks ago. And we work closely with him now because you know what? We love his mission and he's on a very similar mission as we are. And we're like, you know what? We don't need to develop new thing. What we have developed is a system that uses different tools, different protocols, different products, and now these financial incentives. And our real product as TeraGanix today is profitability platform. It's not even a product. We come in, we look at what you're doing, and we're like, okay, this is the margin you're missing. You're not gonna hit this year. Where can we get that? And while we're doing that, we're doing it with some biological products. We're doing it with protocols, which is not just a product, it's the way you farm, right? Like, okay, are we going to do it soil? Are we going to do it foliar? Are we going to do, what are we going to do different this year that can be cheaper or more effective, or we can use less product and make it more effective? And then the last thing that we added, and we want to add more, we're looking for what are other tools that we can add. But the last tool that we added are these programs that are federal and state level that are, and I'm not going to go into politics. I have my own opinion. It's complicated. It's not about if the government is good or not good. It's about there are tools. They do have to do these things. Okay. They have to circulate some of the money that comes from taxpayer money. And then a lot of this gets unused because people either don't know how to do it, they don't understand it. And we've discovered some of these programs that are basically supporting farmers in this transition. And we are looking for the ones that are the low-hanging fruit, the easiest to get, that are compatible with what we're doing, so we can say, hey, this farmer did this program is to the T what you're looking for. Let's put them in. And again, for some like research and development and so on, we've delivered in less than a month of been doing this to 2 farms a significant amount of money. And I'm talking it landed on their bank account in less than a month from the day when we're like, hey, I think you qualify for this program with the protocol you did with us for the past 2-3 years. Do you want to try if you qualify for it? And we've included, I think so far, 15-20 farms. All of them are on a good trajectory. I think only 2 or 3 that we talked to were like, the juice is not worth the squeeze. We might do it next year. But all of them are on a good trajectory to get some money from these programs, and 2 got paid in less than a month. And that is what, when I say profit, right? Profitability platform, we're looking for tools that can really help these farms bring food on the table.
So, you said new and improved, right? You don't want a new and improved. I commend your husband, because there is a lot of products out there.
Yeah.
Like BioAct, right? They have spent a tremendous amount of money reinvesting into their company to develop these amino acids that are extremely easy to use, cost effective, great for patching holes. It's not something you have to do every year. It's just there to fill the void. And then once you get the chemistry balance, right? The Mulder table, right? Mulder chart.
Yeah.
Very complicated and difficult to understand, like ppm against the crop versus the soil.
Yeah.
So it's not a just one chart reads everything. There's so much behind that chart. That's the big picture, but your individual situation is going to change how you approach that chart.
Yeah. And Leighton, there's so many good products out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the product, it's in combination with what? We that's kind of what we're doing lately, is we have a lot of conversation with a lot of other companies and other products, and we're like, hey, like, this is what we're thinking for the soil. You guys have it. I want to test this with this and this and this and this, and I want to make my own program, right? And like and that's kind of what we're doing in the background. Is we're looking for what's working, and then we're testing it inside of our program. Okay, it has to be a whole ecosystem. Can your product work with our product and their product? Can it deliver this measurable ROI in soil or foliar on the crop? And can it then qualify for these different things, these different programs that we can get an extra ROI back year 1, year 2, to give that boost to a farm so they can start breeding and then go on this regenerative path.
See, so you already are new and improved, because you're a program, you're software that you're improving year by year by year by doing exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
So, kudos to you that you figured out it isn't all about the product, it's about the program.
Yeah.
The program allows you to select products, and you're not pigeonholed into my company or this company or that company. And you have the tools. I think it's more the knowledge, because that's the only way you can really move forward, is to have a deep understanding of what makes it work, right? Yeah. And the fact that you're saying, well, first thing we're going to look at is what we can cut out, right? Because whatever you cut out, penny saved is a penny earned. Yeah, I've been preaching that shit for years and nobody gets it. Like they will not look at, oh, I could save this much. It's only about, well, how much can I earn, right? And so by shifting the client's mind to the fact that, no, cut this out. You don't need this, but spend part of that budget on this, and this will move you forward in a direction that it becomes less and less and less important over the years. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And kudos to you. You're young, you're enthusiastic, you're motivated, you have great energy. So they're going to listen to you. And, I'm a grumpy old man, salty, grumpy old man. So I tend to be a little bit too, I don't know, in your face. I don't deliver well anymore. But I think that's the whole point, is that you are new and improved. You're still improving, and you probably will forever, which is great. Yeah. Because that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, and to our point, I'm trying to make that different parallel that our actual product or service is the program.
Mm-hmm.
And then the products that we use are just the ingredient, right? And there's a company that just makes biologics, let's say, and that is the biologic is their product, and they're gonna go and they're gonna develop better, more stable, different strains and so on. And what I'm saying is we're not that. Biologics are just an ingredient for the programs. The program is actually what is our product. And we of course love to use biologicals because they are incredible, but they are an ingredient to our product, which is the program. And you put that really nicely.
So we've done 2 or 3 podcasts in this year that I was just blown away at. The men and women who have gone across the country, the world, and harvested these radically different microbes from radically different environments, and figured out how to get them to work together so they didn't, outcompete or kill each other off. That is the future, because now you have one stable product that is basically um, the Garden of Eden, and by that I mean through horizontal gene transfers, biosymbiosis. Whoever is present in the indigenous soil will have the opportunity to learn from these troopers that are coming in from volcanic vents at the, or friggin' vents at the bottom of the ocean, or permafrost up in Canada. And so, we don't have to develop them. They're already been developed. People have spent 30 years, millions of dollars to develop them, based on their own drive, their own motive to try to unlock this piece of the puzzle out. That gives us a very unusual opportunity at this point in time, where there's such a need for this, to work together as a village, and give these tools, or give these people opportunity to use these tools. And again, it's not a forever, right? It's not like you have to do this every year. Once you get that ecosystem up and running, it's water only, right? For life. And that's, talk about giving the farm to the future generation. That's it. If all they need is water, and even not consistent water, even when it doesn't rain or rains too much, it still functions. Oh man, that's a dream come true, right? It's nothing better. Nothing feels better than to help somebody. Genuinely, from the heart, help somebody and see them become successful. And this is one of the reasons I've become salty, is that when I was younger, people were excited to see you become successful, right? But now the competition has gotten so out of whack that they want to put you down, or take you down, or drag you down. They don't want to see you be successful because it makes them feel inadequate. And that mindset's got to change too. And I think that, it's a bit off topic, right? But it isn't, because when a farmer and his neighbor see what's going on, there's going to be a bond there. They're going to say, hey, I don't know what you did, but we're struggling over here. You seem to be doing all right. What did you do, right? That can happen amongst farmers. It's not likely in a city or in competitive corporate environment. But I think that, again, giving the opportunity for people to see, their neighbor being successful, or at least doing better than they were, opens up an opportunity for, what I want to call, like, the old chain reaction, where it's like boom, 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 boom. Before you know it, all the farms in that state or county are working with people like you on programs like these that have a village behind them. So it doesn't matter what you run into, oh, call this guy, or oh, call that guy, or this woman, or that woman, whatever, to because this is the situation. Another thing that's really cool, and we'll talk about this some more offline or over email, whatever. I've been working with kind of a protege for the last 3+ years anyway. about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more, we started talking about, like overlaying all of these test results. So you have your chemistry, your saturated paste, and your physical soil test. You have B crop that's telling you kind of what the enzymes or biology is telling you, because the specific bacteria that does this is present, that's indicating an out of balance or excess of something, or a threat of some kind of pest coming in. Then you start to look at water quality. Like, this is something most people don't do, is take a serious water test. Not one of these game drinking filter company trying to sell you a filter. This is about really a true chemistry analysis. What is your water? And then now you're starting to build a bigger picture, right? Oh, add in geography. Where are you in the world? What do you face? What is your microclimate? You face north, face south, face east, west. You take all those things and you plug it into, I don't want to call it AI. It's a large language model, or a large learning language model. But it has agents that are specifically focused on, you're doing saturated paste, right? That's all I want you to focus on. And you're working on, the geography, where it is, what's the climate. And then you bring them all back together and you tell them to tell the, in this case, a Raspberry Pi, a dedicated computer that only does this. You feed in all these pieces of information, and it comes back and says, hey, based on the water quality, you don't want to use molybdenum sulfate. You want to use a molybdenum, I forget what the other form of it is, because that's going to complex and throw chemistry out of balance over here. It took me freaking years to even begin to understand all that information, right? And even then, I still miss stuff, right? Like the other day, I missed on one test. And shame on me. I should have taken the time to print it and read it. I didn't. I tried to do it off my email while working on other stuff. And I missed the fact that the pH was locking up the trace minerals. Like the saturated paste, there were no trace minerals. The trace minerals were just barely there. Yeah. And instead of going back to chemistry and looking at the pool, I was just like automatically, oh, it's easy. It's just increased trace minerals. And the system came back and said, no, if you just get the pH right, the trace minerals will be available. But if you add trace minerals, you're wasting your time and money, because they're still going to be bound up. And so little tiny things like that can, we're human. We miss this shit. But that system is a calculator. And I've told Craig, I'm like, look, you need to, really polish this thing, because we've, the first 3 times or 2 times we did it, it failed miserably, right? But the more we fed it information like soil food web protocol, Korean natural farming, Jadam, and all of these other camps that exist outside, and are valuable tools, because the farmers can do this themselves. They're not as reliant on at scale. It gets a little bit tricky because you have to buy equipment to do it. Smaller scale, it's easy because you just do it in buckets. But still, as the farmer saves more and more money and starts to have a little more resources to, say, buy a 2,000 gallon cistern, so he can make enough, IMO or any liquid IMO or any of these other products that will boost their field, boost the soil biology and functionality. So anyway, we'll probably have it ready to roll out at the end of the year. But again, I want to reach out to people like you to say, hey, we have this product available for you. So now you take all that information, you feed it into this machine, you pay $250, bam, it comes back with a report that doesn't force you to spend hours, if not days.
Cross-referencing and finding, yeah.
Oh, and you know what it's like, man. If you're a little tired or it's been a long day, you miss shit. But this one's like 1 + 1 is 1, right? It's ones and zeros. So the likelihood of it failing after, this long period of development, it gets less and less and less likely to fail and miss something. So again, it's not perfect yet, but it'll be another, a wrench or a hammer that you'll have in your box that you can use to free you up. Because let's face it, the more FaceTime you get out there with these clients, the more acres you're going to get turned around.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what? From pure business perspective, like I said, we've looked at the ag more from a business perspective, and like, hey, like there are some rules to a business that needs to apply so that all in the chain can be profitable, which is our goal, right? And the more we like took our like head up, when you're in the weeds and trying to figure out, and you're like, okay, let's look at top down. The more we're like, and not just that, like we started talking to like ag investors and all of that, and like their perspective. This is one of the toughest, hardest industries to develop or grow a business in. And just look at from a perspective like software, it's an easy one, right? You develop an app, you make it available, people use it, they give you feedback. This doesn't work, there's a bug here, this is inconvenient, user interface is garbage, whatever, right? I don't like this, I don't like that. You get feedback immediately. You go, you do the background code, relaunch it, right? Can't do that in ag. It's a season for a feedback. And then when you get a result, you're like, or was it this product? Was it this product? Was it that product? Was the product applied 4 years ago? So that's one thing. It takes a year. It's like once a year you can iterate. Once a year. And that's it. And that is for ag companies and input companies, or companies that are working with farmers and a farmer. Because they're doing the same thing. Once a year, they have a shot to change something, and then they get a feedback in October, November, and then again, they have one shot to do it. So it's one of the toughest industries to build something. It takes a lot of time. After about 3 years, you can say, okay, I validate that this thing really works, because even if you get a result in 1 year, it doesn't really still mean that this absolutely works. And then you maybe get to a point to like scale it. And it is, I mean, we've been through hell and back and through hell again with this business. We've been beaten up, like you said, like just like there's a lot of dirty games out there and so on. It just like the industry itself is hard because of the nature of it. And then the players are also not nice. And then, oh my gosh, I mean, like the fact that we're still here today, it's pure fate and pure mission. I mean, it's just that. And we're like, every time we hit a wall somewhere, we're just like, you know what? We're gonna give it our best. What happens, happens. If we ever go down, we go down knowing we did our best. And it's such a tough industry, and I really wish people would talk more about it. Like how hard it is from a pure business perspective. There's so many forces that are playing out there. So many forces.
And like you said, you only have one shot, 1 year.
1 year.
The weather's off. Now you lost all of that data.
All data.
All of it. So
nothing matters. Nothing matters.
Yep.
Yep.
Start over. And so just that one fact, and let's face it, now more than ever, I mean, you used to have the Farmer's Almanac, and it didn't work every year, but it took weather patterns like that were consistent to some degree. Yeah, there was always an extreme event here or there, or a fluke, but it was more reliable than what we have today. I mean, ask any farmer, like, hey, how's the weather been? Has it been, pretty predictable? No, I'll tell you, no, it's crazy. We're seeing streams and droughts and heat waves and, freaking absolute downpours, hail, tornadoes. It's amazing. It'll be amazing to see if they can hold on, get through that 3-year transition so that they are more stable, the plants are stronger, have more defenses. And if they can survive that, then they will be able to prevent what I want to call the industrial ag complex from taking over. mean, you weren't old enough to see what happened during Farm Aid, but it absolutely broke my heart. All of the information about just how bad it was. Like,
and even you kind of opened the door for me to say something.
Good.
Might be a little controversial, but
go for it.
You say the industrial ag complex, right? When you said, yeah, if we get the soil in check, then you only need water. Yes, if we had the original seeds, if we had the original seeds that are nature, with that's another thing, is that these seeds that we have today, and it's to no farmer's fault that they have to use it. We can go on a long conversation how none of this transition was actually I would call it consensual. There was no actual consent to this transition in farming. If we had the original seeds, that would be the case. But unfortunately, the seeds that we have today require certain things, and that's another thing that we're battling. Like the tools that you use that works with the soil we have today and the seeds that we have today, and that's a big one. We've lost the bank of seeds. Who owns the bank of seeds today? Yeah. Not the people.
No, that's a very, very complex and kind of scary.
It's a complex thing. Yeah.
And scary question. The good news is CRISPR technology. You can take a plant and clean it, scrub it of all the crap that they've put in there. And now you do have a seed that you can grow to seed. So sooner or later, that kind of technology will come down in price, just like metagenomics, just like DNA testing, right? That for $200, I can get a freaking DNA analysis on soil. That was like $3,000 4 years ago. It was totally unaffordable.
And I just read, I think it was last week, some of these news that come out as like, oh, this innovation, I just hold my head and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we doing, people? And it was like the seedless watermelon that just rolled out, and it's in all the past few years, and it's in all the retailers and all the retails, all the supermarkets. And I'm like, do we understand as humanity what a seedless, genetically modified to be seedless means? It means we are going to lose it. It means that it's in complete, somebody owns it. This is not something you can take a seed and then somebody owns the supply chain of this particular produce. They own your food. There's no next generation if it's seedless. They have the original seed, and it's only what they produce. And it's all over US now. It's the seedless watermelon. And it's just one of the examples of how hard the industry really is today.
And I could take it a lot darker, but I'm going to shut up.
Oh no, we can both take it a lot darker. I think we're just
playing around with humanity, and it's no joke.
Yeah.
But let's spin it around, because you wanted to touch back on fungi. I think that's critical. Fungi are the architects and the engineers of soil. They're critical for the aggregation and the transportation of nutrients back and forth between plants.
And they're really critical. We have this, I think one of the big problems in ag right now, and just like public health, is the use of herbicides. It comes with, again, it's all linked back to the seed. It's all linked back to the poor soil biology and the natural defenses that these crops have. So we can't just, overnight, I'm not going to use it. No, there has to be a certain ramp off, and fungi is really important in this, and has an important role, because we know that the fungi in the soil can communicate miles away. So if we're looking at a crop that would be growing in nature, on this side of the field, it gets attacked by a pest, it will actually signal all the way to the other side, and it will give it time to develop natural defenses, right? But if you don't have fungi, if the whole ecosystem is out of whack, yeah, of course, you don't have anything else but a herbicide or a pesticide, or if even worse, fungicide.
So
And
did you see the new data on mycorrhizae that came out just the other day?
no, I've not seen anything lately, so I would love to hear it.
Oh my God. So what they now know is that the mycorrhizae sets up an infection site within the plant, communicates with the plant, and then goes out and does this thing. That infection site at some point, could be minutes, hours, days, dies and leaves behind whatever that plant had asked for in that little pod, that little nest of plant cells. And this is going on over and over and over again. Not only is it transporting nutrients back and forth between plants, so this plant wants potassium, this wants nitrogen, okay, there you go, switched them over. It's communicating. Electronal signals, internet, the internet, above, below the ground, just like Avatar. That was real. And
that was real. That was absolutely real.
Yep, we've proven it. Now, here's where it gets more complex. It's been documented that the mycorrhizae can actually pull a cell in, similar to the rhizophagy cycle. So let that bacteria dissolve its outer shell, so it's still got its inner shell, and transport by that fungal hyphae into the plant cells, creating a new network of the rhizophagy cycle that had never been even thought of. Like we've had Dr. White, James White, on this podcast a number of times, and I love talking to that guy because he spits out paper like a freaking windmill. Man, he's always got new data, new information. And I don't think he even knows about it. Maybe he's found out about it through his other resources. I would not be surprised if he had, but maybe he hasn't, because this is like brand new. Like this was just released. They were able to photograph this for 50 hours. You know, that has been always a huge challenge because, you know, like if you look under a microscope slide, it dries up within half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour max. So they developed this camera probably 3 years ago, and it has some kind of lens on the end of it that basically has a little window washer, so it just keeps the biofilm off. So you can film in situ for periods of time. Sounds like they've perfected it, because 50 hours is a long time, right? Think about that. That's, you know, days.
Yeah.
But the whole understanding of this is way, way more complex than even what we knew like a year ago. Is staggering. And again, I love to talk about how it's the greatest time to be alive and the scariest at the same time. I mean, science, if you're a science guy, it's like, holy cow, I'm bombarded with information and new understandings. And, you know, like the work that Kurtufa did out of Colorado State on understanding the dissolved organic matter, MOEM. You know, how does organic matter build in soils? That's her mission. And that was the first time in my life when I read that 3 or 4 years ago that was like, oh, now I know why my compost extract works so well. I'm pumping with a fire hose pure organic carbon down into the soil. Mm-hmm. So not only am I feeding the biology, I'm putting biology in there, diverse biology, but I'm giving it also all these other primary and secondary metabolites that the biology can use to do tertiary metabolites. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I get so excited when I see these things. And you know, the understanding, like what you said about tilling, 1 inch max, right? As long as they do that, they can knock back the cover crop if it doesn't crimp. Even if it's a gully and it goes over the top, they can turn around and go the other way. So there's ways to manage the, you know, maintaining roots in the soil that were not even discussed 5 years ago, right? So we're in this beautiful opportunity to weave this beautiful tapestry, all of this information, all of this knowledge, all these products under guidance like you with a management program that basically provides you, the stepping stones to get to this place as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So again, amazing, scary as it is, the world right now. It's an amazing time to be alive and having conversations like this.
Yeah,
with
I agree.
A person that's inspired. And let's face it, you're inspiring me. See how excited I just got? I get to talk like this to many people. They just don't. They're like, yeah, whatever, right? So anyway, I thought I'd share that with you.
Another thing is we're in a time that more people care than ever. I feel like people are not so much just in their own weeds their day. They're like they care. They care about what's going on. It's easier to have tougher conversations, more philosophical conversations, more scientific conversations. And you know what? More conversations than when you're questioning the narrative and you're questioning the status quo. Because one thing about science and everything is the more we know we don't know. And I think every time that I do not trust the science that says it is exactly like this. It is written in stone and this is it. Never in the history of science have we not discovered that it really is not like that and is actually a little bit different. We've, and medicine and everything. And that is the scariest part is it is like this and it's definitely like this and there's no way there's a different answer. And I think today there's more conversations oh, this is cool. What else? What if not? And I like that. And I also we get so many questions. Of course, we get so many questions about how this works or we get results that nobody expected. And people ask me why? And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I like to say I don't know. I say I don't know more than I would like to, but I'm like, I don't know. Because these microbes, the biologicals, how they interact with chemicals, the soil and everything, this is a whole new world that we're just tapping into. And it's beautiful, it's magical. And you know what? We don't know. We know a lot, but the more we know, the more we are oh wow, this is so beyond.
So try this. This was something I developed when I was speaking in public back a few years back. I would start by everything I'm going to tell you is what I've learned up until this point. But more often than not, I found out a week from now, a month from now, maybe even a day from now, that was incorrect. So please understand, this is just a ladder that we're climbing together.
Yeah.
So we know this up until this point. But the next step, we may realize, ooh, we missed a step, or we're going to have to go back 3 steps because all the assumptions that were made up until this step were incorrect. And so that's a safe way of saying, I don't know, but what I do know is this, but it may be proven wrong tomorrow. And so bear with me. We'll stay in touch. And that's been a safe way because when the first year of doing that, I'd get punched and pinged on Instagram and dinged on emails and texts. You don't know what you're talking about. Blah, blah, blah. Look at this paper. Look at that. And I'm like, all right, when did I say it? And when did that come out? And it just sucked to have to defend yourself about, information you're trying to share. I'm there sharing with you. You want to come back and bitch at me? So that was something that really helped a lot in
that's one thing I say, especially in today's world when we have social media, YouTube channels and all that, and you can put so much information out and everyone is entitled to have an opinion, which I absolutely believe in, but I also do believe that you should form an opinion based on something. I always say you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because we get a lot of pushback, why did you do this, why did you do that, why did you do it this way? There's a reason. And you know what, okay, we did this, it was this result, We moved forward. There was a condition that happened to us. Oh my gosh, we can't do it this way anymore. Or you know, like, and like things change, and like it's a fast environment, and like you said, like you're trying to inform people. There's a new information comes out, and then they come back and they pull something from 5 years. I'm like,
You know, like you said earlier, no matter what you do or say, not everybody's going to love you or like you for that matter. 50% of the time you're going to be wrong. 50% of the time they're going to love you. So you just got to, grow thick skin, don't let them knock your chip off your shoulder, because that's who you are. You're here fulfilling, whatever destiny you feel is the appropriate one for you at this time. And that destiny can change, man. That happens significantly to me.
Yeah.
Bounce from career to career. All of them were long-term careers, 15, 20 years. And then, whatever circumstances came along, and I realized, maybe that wasn't the right direction. Like, you started with a product and now you got a program, right? So I guess I'm trying to say inspiring words to you directly and your husband, that just stay strong to your core principles and, enjoy the freaking ride. I mean, clearly this is a place that is desperately needs support and people. And I think you will be able to be successful to whatever degree you want to be. I mean, you want to grow this into a monster, you can. I mean, the demand is there, and you're gaining all the resources on products and tools that you need to really push. And, I think going back to your earlier statement about people are more open. Yeah. So when I started doing this 2009, people thought I was insane. They're like, what do you mean soil biology? Why do we need to engineer our soil? I'm like, it's not engineering, it's understanding the difference between sand, silt, clay, and organic matter. That's what I mean by engineering. It's not like I'm building soil. I'm just working with what I have or what you have. And that was all the way up till 2020 that I was getting pushback. I mean, it wasn't as bad. More and more people were getting educated. I was getting some more intelligent questions, but not like really intelligent questions. But post-COVID, I think a lot of people were like, what am I doing with my life? I'm working my ass off. I never seem to get ahead. I can't afford what I used to. It seems like I'm going backwards. What am I eating? What's going on around me? And because they had time. Like, they weren't being freaking marched down the goddamn galley all day long.
Yeah.
We're working at home.
Big mindset reset.
Yeah, total reset. Total reset.
Total reset, yeah.
and after that, the questions were 100 times, 10 at the minimum, 100 times more educated. Like, that person put thought behind it or had knowledge behind that question that they asked me. And it was super rewarding to see that, because, prior it was frustration. Like, I had a real difficult time unless I could see the person. Like, if I couldn't see your eyes and see your reactions or your body language, I wouldn't know if I was talking over your head or you were following along. Like, am I bewildering you? Because I don't want to lose you. I don't want you to feel like you're stupid or you don't understand me. I'm trying to help you. And so if I embarrass you because you feel like you're inadequate or you don't understand or you don't have the knowledge, that's negative. Like, you're never going to come away with a good feeling like, oh, that's really cool. I want to know more about it. Right. So that was another big learning curve. Was originally, I was invited to do some podcasts, but you didn't really see the person. You just heard them. And I didn't like that platform. I pushed back against it. Said, you know what? I'm going to wait till, their video at least. I mean,
there's no connection. There's no real connection. The transaction is not.
I mean, even this isn't great, right? Yeah. We can't see the audience, but we can see their comments, which is great. But it's hard to talk and read and carry on the conversation at the same time. But at least, they can see us. So they can see, our excitement, our enthusiasm, and hopefully get what we're trying to project, right? But again, I really miss the days of like publicly speaking, because you could cruise the room and see who was on point, who wasn't, who you needed to talk to after, and who you needed to avoid. Like there was always the negative friggin' soul suckers that just wanted to make money or just wanted to embarrass you. But you could figure it out. It was something that you had, a power that you had to figure out who you really needed to go help and who you shouldn't waste your time with. So that was just a rant.
No, but that's real. That's real. That's real part of building a business, building a podcast, building audience is like you need to know who your real audience is. You need to talk to your real audience. Even, that's what I kind of like sometimes say to my husband is like, sometimes when we're responding to certain comments, we're like, we're never going to work with them. We're not what they need. They're not our audience. And when we do respond, we're responding for whoever our audience is behind it. And I'm like, that's kind of what you need to like sense out is not everyone's your audience. And like you said, you need to know where you're going and like where to put your effort in and spend your time, because it's not personal. It's not personal. You're looking for whoever actually needs you and who you can benefit, and who is the actual person on the other side that you're helping. And you need to we're responsible to figure that out and leave the rest out. Like that's not worth the energy both ways.
I think Ken, the host, says it best: is take what you align with and leave behind what you don't. And in doing so, you're never going to get sucked into that trap of trying to convince somebody who doesn't want to hear it or doesn't care about it.
And that was a big part of our journey. I mean, we as a company went through a big transition of who our audience is, what we're really doing, what's our value, what do we want to be, who do we want to be, what's our mission, We did a big transition in the last 2-3 years, and it was a lot of that, and that's hard. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, the path of forwardness is often rigged with booby traps and setbacks and brick walls.
so much, like I would call it shedding.
Yeah.
So much shedding of like the old skin into like, okay, what are we really doing? Who do we really serve? What do we really want to do? And there's got to be a lot of shedding when you're going through that.
Oh, I'm into that. And it always sucks when that old skin comes off and you get sunburned because you don't have any protection anymore.
Oh, you described it so well. I'm going to go back and I'm going to be like, yeah, there was the sunburn.
my old skin came off and the new one didn't like the sun anymore. Oh my God. So before we I really wanted to hear more about, the farms that you've connected with, like how many acres? Because I've been hearing more and more reports from people that are getting, up into the millions of acres under regenerative farming. So like, what do you got your teeth sunk into, like overall, even though they're either in the pipe or just got into the pipe or they're on the other end of the pipe?
So I would say not all of this is deployed acres, right? Because there are farms that are either fully deployed or they are just starting or they're on a transition. But just say we've started really seriously developing commercial agriculture and our platform in 3 years, right? This is the journey of the last 3 years. That's what I said. 2-3 years was a big. That was a sunburn there, it was a big painful transition, but we feel the mission and we feel where we're going. So yeah, we have, I would say in the Midwest and row crops, 150 to 200,000 acres. I would say about half of that is deployed, like full on deployed or multiple years of deployment, and others is just like they're on, in transition to get there. And then we've in the last 18 months, maybe even a year, we started working with permanent crops. So that's like Central Valley, which is a more complicated system. And there's like more tools you need to pull and bigger ROI programs because of that. Candidly, we have right now about 130,000 acres across that. And yeah, not, I would say about third is deployed. So
Congratulations.
it's
That's,
been a journey. It's been a
yeah,
journey.
that's monumental. I mean, two people making that big of a difference, or whether you got employees now or not, doesn't matter. I mean, you took it from where it was to where it is, and I would consider that highly successful. So congratulations on the hard work and dedication that you put in, and in the fact you didn't get frustrated and walk away or crash and burn, because
Okay.
many small businesses do, especially in the first 3 years. It's just,
We I'm gonna be honest, we get frustrated every Tuesday. I want to crash and burn it. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie.
why Tuesday?
I picked the day, I picked the day, but I'm like, I feel like every June I want to sell the company. Every every second week I want to crash and burn it because it is it's tough, but then every time there's like I said, this when the firm that's been doing a protocol for 3 years and they're getting great results with input reduction, and then they get a check cut, from like the credits, and it lands on their bank account, and they're like, wow, this was cool.
They call you and they give you a big emotional hug, and you go,
Right?
now I'm reminded why I'm doing this.
And you're reminded why you're doing that. And then like there's a lot of times when like honestly, like for our personal, because we have a 1-year-old, and like we have a beautiful family life, and like we always get reminded whatever happens, that's what matters. It's our little family that we love. And you know what, it does take a toll on you. And then and you're looking at your little baby and you're like, oh, I just wish I was less stressed, and that I could even more enjoy this, and like maybe I would be less stressed if I took a different path. And then you feel like you're letting everyone else down if you do that. And definitely, I mean, it's a very rewarding it's very rewarding work, but also it's really hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's really hard.
I've been self-employed since I've been 18, and there have been so many ups and downs. I buried so many of them. I can't even remember how many. But and I'm with you. Like every Monday, like I start off, everything's good. I work Saturdays and Sundays because that's when I get my best work done.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered. I'm not texting or emailing or getting calls. So I kill it on Saturdays and Sundays. And then Monday, well, if I don't come Monday, I'm behind the whole week. I'm chasing my tail. So, but Ken will tell you, I've come on this podcast exhausted more times than I can think, because I've just been the shit kicked out of me since 7:00 in the morning till we start the podcast at 2. It's almost like a relief that I can shut my phone off and not worry about emails and calls and all that shit. But I'm burnt, man. I was like, I just gotta stop, man. I gotta stop. Yeah. So, I
like the analogy. I just saw a joke somebody made on social media not a long time ago about business ownership, and you're like, owning a business is like you're gonna cross the road. You look left, you look right, you look left, you look right. It's empty. You cross the road, and the plane crashes on your head. And I'm like,
you didn't look up.
And you didn't look up. And I'm like, I mean, there is no perfect this is a perfect description of how it really is.
No, it is. It literally is. Or you're stepped on a landmine, right? There's always something coming. You get hit with a golf ball from the neighbor's friggin' backyard that you couldn't see coming. And that is the hard part of entrepreneurship, is that, I mean, the very word says risk taker, right? The heart of the word means you take risks.
Yeah.
And you know, they're educated risks. It's not like you're playing, poker. Well, even that you can be somewhat educated to. But
there's always a reason, even though some decisions might look to somebody, unfunded, but there's always a reason. And you know what? There's always things that are out of your control. And
Yep.
like it's just that's what it is.
the universe.
Yeah.
The universe has a purpose. Your spirit has a purpose, right?
It has a purpose.
You're
Yeah.
here to do something, and you're on a path that you believe is the right one. And like I said earlier, that path may shift. It may go off in another direction, just like when
And that's why we believe in. We believe that the challenges are either to change how you do things, or to change your path, or to change you.
Amen. You have a great attitude. You really do.
Thank you.
You're built for success, and I'm sure you are going to continue to be successful. Typically, we do questions at the hour and a half. So why don't we bring Ken on? We only have 2, which is good. It should be pretty easy, and then we can get back to chopping it up again.
Sweet.
Okay, Farmer Cheryl wants to know, can you comment on the soil microscopy training that is available to the public? How can it be improved and made more available?
So I've offered the microscope class a number of times over the years. I don't advertise it. It usually happens through kind of an organic meeting, or somebody posts something or texts me a question. The way I like to do it is I FaceTime. So we start with getting you a microscope, teaching you how to set it up, but then we go through the protocols of like how to collect the sample, how to put the sample into the vial and mix it, how to use the pipette, how to do multiple tests at the same time, because more often than not, if you just do one slide, you'll miss shit. Like all the time, like I always do 2 drops for every single soil sample, because I'll see different things on different slides. And that's the only way I've really come to understand that, to some degree, I think that there is some adjustments needed. Like I can't wait till AI can do like the whole slide or multiple slides, so you can really get a bigger picture. Because in reality, if you think about it, you go out onto a 1 acre site, right? You can tell the plants are all similar, so there's not an ecotone difference. You can test the soil. Soil seems to all have a similar texture. So you take all these samples from that 1 acre, you mix them all together in a bag, and then you take 1 gram out of that bag, and you look at 1 drop. How inaccurate is that, right? And that's the philosophy that you need to go into understanding microscopy. This is not something that is a one and done. It's something that you have to really listen to your intuition. Be observant. Like, are there different types of plants? Do the different flushes of plants, is the soil underneath them different? Well, then now you've got to do 2 tests, and you've got to follow that same understanding of, it's maybe different from the south side to the north side, even though, the plants are all similar, soil texture might change. So it's really, we like to call it quantitative, but at the very best, it's qualitative. There's just too many variables. And the other piece that I think a lot of people miss is the quieting of the mind. So what I learned out at Rodale was when, I was lucky. I got to sit with all Elaine's proteges in the microscopy lab. And there was like 8 microscopes across. And so I'm sitting, every day I'm sitting next to a different person. And, some were helpful, some were not. But one thing that I really stuck out at me was when one of the kids was in a good mood or a bad mood. Like if it was Friday, all of a sudden they'd be seeing, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. And I always go over, because they had a lot more experience than me. And can I see what you're looking at so I can learn this? So I got to see what they're looking at. I look at it and go, oh, that doesn't look that great. And then I would see, somebody, she broke up with her boyfriend, or they got in a fight. She was mean as a snake that day. And every single slide she looked at was junk. And even though she was pissed off, she'd be like, oh, this is horrible. I'd go over and I'd say, please, they all knew me because I was trying to really learn this. unlike, a lot of people, I was a little aggressive. Like, I didn't care. So I'm like, please show me. What are you seeing that's so bad? And again, I'd say, it doesn't really look that bad. Mindset is critical. Literally, like, if you're in a bad mood, you're going to see bad shit. If you're in a good mood, you're going to see good shit. Mm-hmm. So you have to go into it. Like, I say a little meditation before I sit behind the microscope. Don't let me see what I want to see. Don't let me see what I don't want to see. Let me see what is really here. And that's kind of clear your mind so that you're in the right neutral space to allow the universe to let you observe this tiny fraction of this whole soil system. So think about it as like space expanding into nothingness. That's how small this little microscope slide is. Again, that's why I do a minimum of 2 each soil sample. So that's the kind of shit I teach. Others have different protocols. I know, like, a lot of people that teach Elaine's protocols, they have a way to shake. You have to do this 30 times, try to keep the same strength. I don't worry about that. I'm more about agitation and separation. Another part that I break as far as protocol is concerned is that I'll test it today, but I always wait 24 hours and retest. Because a lot of times the biology comes out after being submerged in water. It's hydrated. It was in cyst form, which is what it does to keep itself safe until it's in the perfect environment. As soon as you pulled it out of that soil, you took it out of its safe environment. You changed everything. So a lot of times they'll cyst up and you won't notice them until you get a really good trained eye. And even then, at best, it's difficult to see it. But by letting it sit for 24 hours and rehydrate, you've kind of brought it back into an environment that it can thrive. So it's not the mechanical part. It's more of the innuendos, the mental side that I think is what turns someone into a good microscopist or a mediocre one. And that was always my frustration with Elaine's students. Like, I'm like, man, you gotta get these kids out in the field. That's great that they took the course, they get their certificate, but it's like you need to require field experience. Like, you shouldn't just say, oh, here, you're all set, go out on your own. It should be like, all right, you passed, 12th grade. Now you're going to go to college or 13th grade, whatever you want to call it. But that field experience is critical because that really brings in another dimension of what you're looking at. And when I do a soil collection, like, I'm looking at everything. Like, I'm looking at the insects, I'm looking at the birds, I'm looking at any plant life, I'm looking at any other life, forms, squirrels, foxes, rabbits, because that tells you a lot more about the ecosystem. Another example where I break from soil food web protocol is on fungi. Elaine always told me, if it's clear fungi, clear and small diameter, it's a pathogen. And I would argue with her. I'm like, well, according to pathology on fungi, it takes 7 to 10 days for you to see its morphology. In other words, for it to mature enough to take on a color and to begin to harvest, a humic or a fulvic acid, which provides the color. So for you to say automatically that that's a pathogenic fungi is, I think, irresponsible. I think you need to look at the rest of the slide and say, oh, well, there's protozoa in here. There's no ciliates. If there's ciliates, then it probably is a pathogenic fungi. But if you got all these beneficial nematodes and protozoa and you got some clear fungi, I'd have to say we don't know. We shouldn't just automatically throw it into a pathogenic a phase. And on and on and on, because like some fungi that are pathogenic can become beneficial and mutualistic in the right environment. So it's a tool that should be used responsibly, respectfully, but soulfully more than anything. Sorry to go on a rant, but that's, I'm passionate about the way I teach. And if I'm going to take the time to teach you, I'm going to make sure that I've given you like the power or the important things that you need to consider when you're taking the soil sample. And that was the other thing. When a lot of these people get the soil samples sent in, I'm like, you didn't FaceTime them? Like, you didn't watch how they collected it, where they collected it from? How can you make an intelligent decision and guide them when you have no idea the physical conditions of where that soil came from? So again, I have a lot of beefs about the existing microscopy method of teaching that I think hopefully will evolve with people like me.
Okay.
Boy,
Young lady, do you have anybody that you would recommend to teach, or any avenues that you know of where people can access microscopy knowledge, or at schools or anything?
You asking me?
No.
Okay.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yes.
Honestly, the biggest microscopy, biology, and soil experts that I know, Leighton, Matt Powers. The only two that we really know. But honestly, I'm not the best person to give that advice because, again, agronomy is so big, and this is a part of agronomy. So, just letting you know the people that I've learned a lot from and that I really like.
Okay.
And we should caveat Andy. She's been on this podcast before. When I was ready to find a third party to verify my work, I would get clients and say, "Hey, thanks, Leighton. Are you sure this is right? Or can you get me in writing or give me like a quantitative report?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not the guy. Like, I'm a field guy. I'm a guy in the trenches. If you really want like purely quantitative data, I will find you someone." And I went on a mad search for, probably a year and a half to really get to someone that I was comfortable saying, "Okay, I trust you." And I met Andy Marsh through the referral, and I interviewed her, and I was, pretty much upfront about what I'm looking for. And, we talked about theory and what we felt about what we had learned in direct microscopy classes. And she was not like a lot of them who were just like, "Oh, you have to do it this way. This is the only way." She was willing to talk, and she started shooting spores and cysts for me, like telling me how many spores were present, how many cysts. She charges me more for it, but she was willing to go out onto that limb, whereas a lot of the other ones were like, no, we never were taught that part of it. So I think that the point is that she was easy to work with. She was willing to have constructive conversations, even if they were against what her beliefs or teachings were. And therefore I was like, "All right, you're my third party." And I've used her ever since. Yeah, I've been really happy with the results. Her reports are not stamped. They're the same. Each one is tailored. Like, it's not just friggin' boilerplate report. And she also provides a video of what she's seen. And I don't see a lot of the other food web graduates that go to that extent beyond the test to really help you understand more about what she saw and why she's saying what she said. So,
yeah,
said about that. Rhizos, Got Science, Andy Marsh. She's a very, very great human.
Well, somebody asked if that's the protege you mentioned.
No, the protege is actually Craig Trester out of New York City. So he and I met at a Korean natural farming event. I kind of helped set up with a client of mine. At some point I probably ought to get him on this podcast. He's a great guy. Harvey Hubble. His dad was the guy that opened our eyes to astrology through the Hubble and the astrology, or not astrology, astronomy that he taught. Crazy cat. But his son Harvey is a really good dude. He's down to earth. And anyway, he hired me to come out and help him transition out of NPK corn that was farmed for 60 years into a regenerative hay grower. So anyway, he and I had a blast. And so when I was working with Chris Trump, I'm like, "Hey, dude, there's nobody out here on the East Coast teaching Korean natural farming. Would you be willing to host a course out here?" Harvey's like, "Hell yeah, I got the barn, I got the space, we'll set up tents, whatever." So I connected him to Chris Trump, and I'm like, "Chris, this is Harvey. He's a client of mine. great guy. You guys go ahead and set up a conference. I don't need to be a part of it. This is between you and him. You guys figure out the money and all the logistics. So Craig Trester had heard through the grapevine about this conference that was being put on, this 3-day event at this farm up in Connecticut. So he showed up, and it was crazy because like I had so many people like, wait, now I get to see you again, right? So like I was getting too much attention, and he tried to come up to me and talk to me, but it wouldn't work. And I could only spend like 4 hours there on the first day because I had to be off to some other jobs. And so we didn't really connect, but then he reached out after and we connected. And then it wasn't long after that COVID hit. And so he and I and his other buddy, Erickson, would chop it up every Friday night about we'd find papers that we liked, white papers, send it to each other, and we'd all pick one of them, and then we'd have a study group on that. And we did that for a year and a half, 2 years during COVID. So we became close friends. I learned a shit ton from him. He learned a shit ton from me. And we all learned from each other, which was great. And so we formed a bond, and then I brought him on at ESS and
Clubhouse.
Yeah, Clubhouse. Yeah. Remember Clubhouse? Whatever happened to that?
Yeah. Well, let's get back to the question, though. I think, guys, if you reach out to local schools, ag groups, you may be able to find people that have the microscopes. Please teach the children as much as possible. But like Matt Powers has excellent courses. We have actually next week, we've got Matt from Shooting the Soil on. Yeah. He's a student from Matt Powers. We've had a couple of different people that have been trained there through his courses. Leighton doesn't have regular courses, but reach out to Leighton and, he may just help you out. But, try to teach the children as much as possible and get in touch with your ag societies locally to you to see who has microscopes and, who is teaching, and try to do the best you can. But let's get on to the next question.
One last caveat.
Okay.
On Instagram, they are showing these portable microscopes for kids. They're inexpensive, and they have the same view power as a regular microscope. And if you give it to a kid, he's not going to touch his phone. He's not going to want to sit in front of a TV. He's just going to go, or she is going to go ballistic when they go out into nature and really get to see things at that level. So that's shutting up.
Yeah.
I know the first time I went out was a pond out by the school, and we took microscopes out and looked at the pond scum, and it was like, holy shit, man, what's all this stuff in here, all that life? But is there a VC for biologicals? Could that help fund projects developments?
So I worked with Mission, that's a group that are on a mission to give back. So it's Mission Capital. I worked on angel investors, right? Who, they're here to support you, give you the money, but support you. They're not here. They don't just give you the money and walk away. They're mentors. They come with you on your journey. And then venture capital. Venture capital is 100% about ROI. They will absolutely crush you.
Yeah.
All right. And even Mission and Angel are dangerous in that regard because they're seriously just focused on the return. Mission's a little bit more gentle because they want to philanthropy, like give the money back. They're a little harder to get to commit to you because you really have to fill their niche, whatever their passion is. And Angels, everything's dried up. All that money is dried up. That money was flowing like crazy for years, and too many people got too carried away, and because their whole goal is to fund 10 companies and have one successful. But when they fund 10 and they get no successful ones, they start pulling back. So, yeah, that's just a little education, Charles, on who those groups are and how they operate. But
yeah, it's that, and they're looking for really high ROIs, and there's a lot of pressure, and to do it faster, less quality. And like we talked before, ag is really hard to do that if you want to do it right. So sometimes you end up with, our VC was our house. That's where you're left up.
Yeah.
My VC was hard work. Just keep working, keep pushing.
Just keep working, just pour it all in. All you got. And let Jesus take the wheel,
Pray, baby, pray.
Positive intentions, positive energy, all those things are the only way to get through some of the dark times.
Yeah.
Well,
especially after it all happens for a reason.
Yep, I'm into that. Well, listen, I really want to thank you, Tjaša. Thank you for coming on, give us 2 hours of your time updating us. We didn't get really to chance to sell your product or have you sell more about your services, and please come back on in another 3-6 months, whatever you're comfortable with, and we'll stay more focused on TeraGanix and what it's doing and how it's functioning. And I want to hear more about these successful farms that you're transitioning, because I think that at the end of the day is why we're doing what we're doing. It's all about growth, whether it's self-growth or plant growth.
Yeah, like I said, end of the day, it's not about us. I think I've communicated the message. It's about the outcome. It's about the audience. It's about who you want to do it with, who you want to do it for. It's not about the product and all that. And I love where the conversation went.
Cool.
It's all about biology.
And actually, I don't know if you knew this, but they've scientifically confirmed plants have 20 senses, and they think there's more.
Ooh.
That means they're more sophisticated than we are.
They're sentient beings for sure.
Yeah, totally. They're finally coming clean on that.
Yeah.
They can communicate through smell, through touch. They know when you're there.
I know. It makes me feel so bad when my cat eats my plant. Like, it hurts my feelings. Like, I did not want to know that. I feel like I'm keeping it hostage.
That's too funny. Way too funny.
Oh, give it some good biology. It'll bounce back. It's maybe the cat and then they're communicating and the plant.
Maybe it's all part of the plan. I don't know.
I don't like you. You looked at me wrong.
Well, hey, if the plant got pissed enough, I'm sure it has some kind of defenses. It can push up into the leaves where it eats it.
I think he's getting it. Oh, he's gonna get back. He's gonna get back. Oh, for sure.
And Kat, as always, thank you so much for all the hard work and energy that you put on to make this happen every week. Just appreciate it, brother.
Well, we all have missions, that we're trying to accomplish, and I like to look at things as an overview, and that's where, I don't look at specific products or companies. I look at the overview of who's adding biology with their products, and that's where, I keep trying to bring people on to explain that, and that's why we have Matt from Shooting the Soil next week to show us under the microscope what the heck's going on in our soils, because I don't even want to look through a microscope for hours a day. I'd rather have somebody else, show that, yeah, there's life here, right? And young lady, you're talking, it's not about what's in the soil, it's the plant reaction. Is that plant healthy? Well, if that plant is healthy, you have the biology in the soil. Have the biology in the plant itself, because that's what's growing the cells. That's what's growing your plant. Keep the biology happy, and all of a sudden you have healthy plants. But Leighton, thank you for always every week saying thank you, because I do appreciate it, and I appreciate our audience coming on every week and hitting that thumbs up button, subscribing, sharing it with your audience as well. It really does help to get this message out. And young lady, in 3 or 4 months or 5 months, I know you've got some stuff you're working on in the background. We'd love to have you come back on to tell us what's going on, because I think it's really important for everybody to help everybody in this group of, regenerative, life and the vibrancy of our planet coming back, because that's my mission, is the entire planet being healthy.
Yeah.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you both, and thank you everyone for watching. And it's always a pleasure. So yes, we'll be super happy to reconnect in a few months.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
You bet. Okay, guys, we will see you on Wednesday with Andy Lopez. So don't forget to show up for that. And we love you all, and help save the planet by adding biology back into the system. Stop killing biology, guys. We'll see you in a few days.
Bye.